Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the LOPSided Podcast. This month, we're celebrating Pride, and to do so, I'm joined by some of the industry leaders and also leading lights in the LGBTQ+ community. And that leading light today is Mr. Chris Hanley. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. Great to have you on here.
Thank you.
So we're going to be talking about your background. We're going to be talking about your experience in the illegal pricing market, and just kind of converging that all together to understand more about what's happening in the market, in the legal sector, with pricing being such a fast evolving area. But just fascinated on your backstory. So what I tend to do here, Chris, I have these questions that I asked everyone. It's a bit random, but firstly, who is your hero?
Who's my hero? Oh gosh, can I go for TV character?
You can go for whoever you want to.
I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
Oh, okay, right.
A ridiculously huge Star Trek fan. The Next Generation, peak level Star Trek, Captain Picard.
Okay,
hands down.
Captain Picard. And what's your greatest accomplishment?
And my greatest accomplishments? Ooh, I guess when I was younger, I used to run for my local county. So.
Oh wow! Long distance?
Short distance, 100 meters, 200 meters.
Wow!
I never came first in anything. Never came first in anything. But it was a huge accomplishment because I was just really proud that I was able to put myself out there.
Yeah.
And do something like that. So I was running against the likes of, some people that then went on to do the Olympics. And it was just a proud moment that I actually got selected for the first in the first place.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing. Yeah. How quickly would you run in the 100 meters and 200 meters?
Not long enough to go to the Olympics.
Amazing. And the most important question of all: which song would you sing on a team karaoke night out?
I don't even know why I'm hesitating. It's definitely "Hit Me Baby One More Time," Britney Spears.
Oh, Britney, bit of Britney.
I mean, everyone knows the words to that, or even Toxic. Even Toxic.
Tocic's a bit of a banger as well.
It is a banger, yeah. It is a banger.
All right, so which job would you trade your current job for in a heartbeat?
Well, the career that I went down when I first left university was working within fashion retail.
Right, okay.
And I absolutely loved it. But what I didn't love, and the reason why I changed and became an accountant, is because the pay was just absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
So in a heartbeat, fashion industry, absolutely loved people, loved the culture. And if money wasn't an issue, it'd be a career that I'd definitely be interested in going down.
Such an interesting space, isn't it?
Fashion. Completely. Retail's a fascinating space, full stop, right? I just think the stuff that they're doing is so fast-paced, it changes constantly. It's never, ever boring.
Do you know one thing that I always, them random things that kind of hit your mind? I think the patience to work, front of house in a retail store, when you're just constantly folding things up, and then people come over and they go, nah, not like that. And then back you go to, need to fold it again. I thought, God, those people have got a phenomenal amount of patience. I don't know how they do that.
But it's the routine, right? So you're there to provide a service.
Yeah.
And part of that service is part and parcel of the job. You know that you're going to get a customer that's going to take something off the rack, screw it up, try it on, put it in the corner, and it's just part of your job to kind of just represent it, right? So you're trained to sell, you're trained to present, and I've had 1,001 customers mess up my display. More than happy to kind of tidy it up.
So selling, very good segue. So you're the head of pricing at Ashurst, one of the kind of the firms at the forefront of legal pricing in terms of, the maturity of the model, the innovation around pricing. But can you share a little bit about your journey as an LGBTQ+ professional, and any defining moments that have shaped your career path to this point?
So, shall I talk a bit about how I got into pricing? So, I guess at university I studied economics and maths, And anyone that does economics and maths, the career path is an accountant or it's a maths teacher. And I was like, I'm way too interesting to be an accountant. And I don't want to be a maths teacher smelling of cheese and pickle sandwiches all day. So, and nothing against anyone that likes a cheese and pickle sandwich.
I don't mind a cheese and pickle sandwich.
They're delicious, tangy. It's nice. It's nice, right? But yeah, that was at the time not the career that I was keen to go down. So, I was interested in fashion, like I said earlier, and I thought, let me explore the careers within fashion retail. And I used to work on shop floor and all that sort of stuff. So I ended up becoming a product merchandiser.
Okay, right.
For House of Fraser. And what that is a product merchandiser. They're responsible for making sure that product's in the right place at the right time in the right quantity. So it's a head office operation.
Right. Okay.
And we'd do the analysis of what's selling well, what isn't selling well, and we'd make sure that we are either ordering it quickly, placing it in the right stores, turning it around, and then when it comes to new seasons, we're working with the buyers to make sure that we are, paying the right amount to bring the stock in.
Yeah.
So that's where I started. And like I said earlier, I think I was in it for a while, and I guess the pay wasn't really kind of working out for me. And I thought, you know what, just use your maths degree and become an accountant. And that's exactly what I did.
Followed the money.
I followed the money, and I sold out, and I'm unashamedly so. I sold out, but I followed the money. I went down the route of management accounting, frankly, because I found an interest in being able to analyse, but also to bring numbers to life. That finance is just literally a spreadsheet exercise. It's pushing numbers around in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Commercial finance is connecting what actually happens on the ground of selling with those numbers. And working within fashion retail really helped with that, because not only did I have to look at the numbers on the spreadsheet, I also had to go on the shop floor and actually connect with the shop floor staff, understand how our customers purchased. So I ended up going down management accounting. I worked for a facilities management company. I was a management consultant within that space. I worked for a direct marketing company as well. And all of that shaped my understanding of commercial finance. And out of the blue, through LinkedIn, I'm sure it was, I got someone saying, look, are you interested in going into pricing for a law firm? Something new, completely different, but I could see the synergies.
There's definitely synergies there, isn't there?
Yeah,
just listening to you talking about that,
the commerciality of it, right? So I saw the synergies and I thought, you know what, let me give it a go. And I gave it a crack, and that's kind of where I've been, I guess, for well over 10 years or so.
Wow. Has it been that long?
Yeah. Must be around that long, yeah.
So can we talk a bit about challenges you've faced in maybe navigating leadership in the legal industry and how you've overcome that? Have there been any challenges? Have you found?
Yeah, I guess, and it's not necessarily legal industry. I just think it's any sort of office-based professional industry, which tends to be a very masculine domain.
Right. Okay.
And as a gay man, I mean, I'm not masculine in the slightest. Like I will mince around harder than any other person around any walkway. And fitting into that culture, I think initially I struggled with it because I felt I needed to be more masculine,
right? Okay.
In order to kind of conform to what everyone else was doing around me. But I guess as my career progressed, I realised that me trying to do that was never ever going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen.
It's just not authentic, is it?
No, it's not. It's not authentic. It made it difficult for me to kind of, let people see my true self. And if you're constantly trying to just mask it all the time, it impacts how you perform, right?
Totally.
So I think that was probably one of the main challenges. And do you know what? I think me being more comfortable in my skin as a gay black man has really just helped me. Like, I don't feel like I need to kind of flex my chest or my muscles to kind of fit in. It is what you see is what you get.
And have you had any mentors? I mean, we could talk allies, and I hope and expect there'd be a lot of those. But in terms more of mentors, people that have kind of helped you navigate that from a leadership perspective, just more broadly in a professional perspective, has there been anyone that stands out?
Oh gosh, there's so many. There's so many. I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of people who are gladly placed in the category of mentor.
Okay.
And I've learned different skills from each of them. Equally, I think I've met a lot of people who I would never ever class as a mentor, but seeing their characteristics has, kind of stared me into what I should not be doing.
Right.
And I
Okay.
think that sort of broad experience of, seeing what I consider to be the right way to behave, and those people that I consider to
The anti-mentor.
the anti-mentor, that's right,
Yeah.
that's a good term, is kind of helped just mold my thinking.
That's
So
really interesting.
yeah, I guess I had one mentor that probably sticks out for me is when I worked in facilities management, um, and it was one of the leaders of departments. Really nice guy. I worked with him on one thing. I was doing some management accounting stuff for him, looking at his overhead, his costs of his department, and that sort of stuff, and making recommendations on how he could improve it. Um, and just out of the blue, he was like, "Do you know what, Chris? If you're looking for someone to mentor you, well, I'm more than happy to kind of dedicate, a bit of time. We can catch up, have coffees, we can talk about stuff," which I thought was really nice. He didn't need to do that in the slightest. And he spent a lot of time trying to understand more about me, what I wanted to achieve, and where I wanted to go. And he would provide, really good nuggets of information, knowledge that I hold to this day. So right down to um, how he dealt with dealing with very senior people.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was very junior at the time. He would give me guidance of how to be a bit more confident in those sort of situations. He would give me guidance on, some of the pitfalls that he's had around the office politics. Don't get drawn into office politics. Be authentic. Be honest. Have integrity in everything that you do.
Mm-hmm. Great
And
advice.
yeah, and I think he definitely helped a lot in kind of molding some of the ways I think today.
And in terms of, we touched on kind of the journey into pricing. Um, how has your role evolved over time? And I suppose has your role evolved with the evolution of the industry, because it's been quite a fast moving industry, isn't it?
Um, I think my role has evolved as my understanding
Okay.
of the industry and the profession has changed. So I say this to literally every single person, everyone on my team. We are more than just pricing. I think pricing is just deeply niche. I think pricing is primarily a spreadsheet exercise when actually, and correct me on if I'm wrong with this, back in the day in the 90s when I was doing GCSE business, pricing was one of the marketing mix.
Mm.
Yep, it's one of the 4Ps, right? There's a creative aspect to pricing that I think sometimes is lost when you just say that you are a pricing professional. So I've evolved into someone that I'd probably more openly describe myself as a commercial
Mm-hmm.
professional.
Yeah,
Pricing is
I
just
see that.
one of the branches that we use to kind of talk to our clients about value. Because commerciality is very broad. Pricing is sometimes just a spreadsheet exercise.
Yeah, and then you get into the structures, don't you? To that point, I think for me it was always there was 2 points to your point. The spreadsheet exercise, it's kind of the cost of delivery, but then pricing, the commercial piece, understanding the client's needs, behaviors, wants, is really about what does that structure look like.
Yeah.
Do we share risk? Do they want fixed price? Can we scope effectively to be able to fix price?
Yeah.
And then just, I mean, there's a big piece around stakeholder management, right? Trying to speak to the partners who know their business better than anybody. At the same time, you're telling them maybe a different way commercially of doing things.
Correct. There's a whole life cycle, right from, how do you warm up your clients to help make them more receptive to the price that you put in front of them? Because at the end of the day, price is just a tool to communicate value.
Yeah.
There's multiple strands to it. So, is the price profitable? Are we offering a price because we want to win some strategic work, or this client is very strategic to us? But primarily, it's all about how we communicate value to our clients. And then I think, like you said, even beyond that, the price will impact how you go about delivering, how you close out. There's a whole life cycle that is impacted by the price that is originally accepted.
And have you seen a shift in kind of the client's expectations around pricing? I mean, lots always been made about the death of the hourly rate, and how clients will just not accept that anymore. I mean, in reality, you're on the forefront, Chris. You're seeing this on a daily basis. Is that materializing? Is that the case?
I mean, the hourly rate is not dead. The patient is refusing to die. So the hourly rate within the legal industry has proven to be a very sticky pricing tool. And I don't think that's necessarily a symptom of our clients embracing it. I think it's probably a symptom of a lot of our legal professionals not really knowing what an alternative can look like. So we kind of default to the hourly rate all the time. And then sometimes some of our clients aren't sophisticated enough to kind of, be creative about how else their matters can be priced up. So what I've seen is the hourly rate being quite sticky. I'm seeing the extent of creativity within pricing going as far as a capped fee or a fixed fee, which is uber creative within legal right now. But you go outside of legal, and that is old hats, right? Where I think we are moving to, increasingly as we're using a lot more AI, is that we're moving away from those traditional sort of like, I will charge you based on the amount of hours, man hours, person hours that we've inputted into something, into, well, how do we now price up the value,
the outputs, right?
The outputs,
yeah,
for a client. And I think the next few next few months, literally weeks, we're going to see our clients just thinking a little bit differently, and law firms thinking differently about how we need to price at work for clients.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when you think about this, and I appreciate it's probably its own podcast, but the whole notion of the death of the hourly rate, when chargeable hours per day still play such a key component part in how law firms remunerate their people. It's very hard to shift to an output-based model when people are being, judged to a certain extent on their inputs as opposed to their outputs. So it's fundamentally about changing the whole infrastructure of 150 to 200 years, 200 for Ashurst, 200-year-old law firm of law, and how legal operates, from the most basic of principles. And on that, there's kind of a linked question. How do you balance profitability with client value in your pricing? How does that work in practice?
So the way in which I view profitability is that it's a reward to the firm for our expertise and the efforts that we're putting into something.
Okay.
So how do you balance value and profitability? If we are confident, as a law firm, if we're confident in the value that we're offering to our clients, we shouldn't be afraid to kind of extract a good level of profits to that. And the way in which we do that is we need to be able to communicate the value that the client's going to get from us. We shouldn't undervalue, and I see it all the time. I see a lot of examples of where work is being priced up, but because we don't have the confidence in the value that we're bringing, we undervalue, we end up with narrow profit margins.
And it can be seen as a bit of a dirty word,
It
can't
is,
it, profit?
Yeah. But, B2B, right? We're all business to business. Everyone is in the game to actually make money, right? Everyone's in the game to make profitable revenue, right? So we shouldn't shy away from having those sort of conversations. It depends how you say it. I think sometimes if you come across as the only thing that you're looking at is money, it's a bit crude or crass. But if you come across as if I'm trying to deliver you the value that you need to get the best results, and I'm happy to do that, but there's a fee that comes to it. It's a different conversation, right? It's not just I'm going to charge you, I don't know, how much do you reckon I'm worth per hour? 10,000? What?
Off, at least 50.
Oh, thank you.
No, I totally get it. And so kind of bringing it back to the pricing, the Pride and the episode of this podcast is pricing with pride, right? So Ashurst are a leading firm in that D&I space. They're a leading firm, I referenced earlier, the maturity of their pricing function. Do you feel there are kind of any correlations between the two that you could think of or that spring to mind?
I guess.
Is it like openness to acceptance to change, maybe, or difference, or?
Well, I think coming back to my early point on, price is all about conveying value, yeah. And what do our customers, clients, what do people value? So they value just as a threshold competency that you can do the job that you're being asked to do. They wouldn't go to someone that they know that can't do the job.
Absolutely.
And every single firm that they reach out to, they just know that they can do it. But what is the value that you're adding to that, right?
What's the differentiator?
What's the differentiator? So maybe the value is, you know what, I want to work with a firm that has values that are the same as mine.
Mm-hmm.
So if diversity and inclusion is something that you value, you'd more likely want to work with that firm over another firm that just disregards it, is not even a priority to them. So there's a correlation in that respect, in that it helps build the brand perception that can then be priced into the value.
And we touched earlier on being your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
From a kind of winning hearts and minds with pricing as a function, that authenticity point, what is it that separates pricing as a professional service from pricing as an administrative function?
Yeah.
So in the sense of, how do you become that trusted advisor to the business?
It's all about business partnering, right? So coming back to my early points about, sometimes pricing can be a spreadsheet exercise, yeah. Plugging numbers into a spreadsheet just to calculate a price that gives you profitability. In order to kind of transcend it into something that's more valuable, you need to be able to business partner with the lawyers, your partners, the wider firm, and actually understanding what they're trying to achieve, what their clients are trying to achieve, and how price can help facilitate that. Mm-hmm. So once you've done the spreadsheet exercise and you've got to that number, it's then trying to contextualize that into something that partner, that lawyer can then go and sell to their clients.
Amazing. It's so interesting. And is there ways in which kind of your lived experience, as you said earlier, as an openly gay Black man, navigating some of the challenges that I'm sure life has thrown up in there, is there anything there that kind of, I suppose, inherently puts, like, kind of lays a foundation of the whole notion of ensuring your pricing with fairness and equity?
Yeah, I think so. But also, I think it's probably less so to do with the fact that I'm gay, Black, whatever. I just think it's a very human thing to want to be treated fairly.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a good point.
If you put yourself into the shoes of, it doesn't need to be the client, just of anyone else. If you're asking for help and support on something, what you expect back is something that is honest, that is integral in the delivery of the service. But when we're talking about money, I also want someone to quote something that's just not going to, for want of a better word, shaft me, right?
Yeah.
So you want something that is very fair and honest, yeah. And yeah, it's a human attribute rather than, I guess, a diversity attribute.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And pricing is increasingly becoming, how can I put it, a key player in systematic change in the industry. Clients want more for less. They're becoming more mature buyers of legal services. How are Ashurst, how's our pricing team adapting to that evolving need? And the industry more generally?
Yeah, the industry more generally. I think there's a few things that's been done. So first of all, is making sure that you just have the good pricing discipline, the foundations,
The governance,
the
or
correct, yeah. So the governance forms part of that discipline to make sure that risks are flagged, identified, and mitigated, and that's the purpose of having that governance in place, and that allows us to kind of say, well, if a client is very price sensitive, we have the right mechanisms in place to kind of identify that, scrutinize it, kick it a little bit, to then decide if it's something that we want to go to our clients and provide. The other layer to that is also knowledge sharing. So something that I'm doing quite a lot of is making sure that we've got good training packages in place, good e-learning modules, making sure that we're doing training with our various offices, with our partners, etc., so that they're aware of some of the psychologies that are involved within negotiating, talking to clients, and talking about price. As well as some of those success stories and some of those I guess horror stories, so that we are all continuously improving about how we talk to our clients.
So one of the other points, AFAs is a term, alternative fee arrangements. It was always a term that kind of described pricing outside of the hourly rate. But is AFA the new normal? Like, is the term itself outdated now?
The term is outdated, and I've never ever liked it. I've never ever liked it. Before legal, I never even heard of the term alternative fee arrangements. It just wasn't even a thing. And yet you come into legal, and I get why it exists. It's an industry that has, since the beginning of time, 200 years, it's always been the hourly rates, and now
They've
all of
sold
us,
time, haven't they, for
yeah,
200 years?
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
200 years. And alternative fee arrangement is a brand of things that says that this is how we'll charge you, that isn't an hourly rate. So I kind of get the branding around it, but it feels increasingly out of date when, personally, I think things like the fixed fee or a capped fee or a bit of risk sharing are probably just quite normal in plenty of other industries, and probably increasingly so within legal. So yeah, I can't wait for that term to be
Yeah.
put to bed and resigned.
It's fascinating, isn't it? When you kind of dive deeper, and we spoke earlier about the fashion industry, how many industries now retain the capability to be able to charge on the basis of how long something has taken as opposed to the output
Correct.
derived from the action?
Correct.
It's it's a fascinating uh, concept.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot that's kind of woven into that. So like I said, that there's the history of just how the legal industry has evolved, right? That's right through to how our lawyers are praised and assessed, and the systems that we've all put in place. All these legacy law firms have put in place systems that are based around hours and the chargeable rate, right through to our courts and their expectations about how we declare our costs and that sort of stuff. So it's kind of bred through the fabric of the entire industry, which is why it's quite sticky, and that's why the term like alternative fee arrangements is still a brand, is a thing that people still talk about to this day. But like I said, I'm optimistic that that term will become less of a thing, and alternative fee arrangements will just be fee arrangements.
Yeah.
There's nothing alternative about them.
So I had an interesting conversation with a partner around this, and we gone on to the point of lawyers selling time, and it stuck in my mind what he said. He said, John, we don't sell time; we're selling strategy and subsequently comfort.
Yeah,
And I thought I thought that was really interesting, because ultimately strategy and comfort are not time based
correct. That's right.
as a notion. So it was just a little bit like, you're absolutely right. And if that's the output is comfort, via the strategy and the support. Well,
Yeah,
maybe a bit more fixing of cost to obtain that comfort, right?
no, completely. I mean, it's based on old school production theory, right? So it's production line. You've got a load of workers, and I guess value was quantified by how much time input was put into developing something. So yeah, we're not selling time. We're actually selling exactly what I just said. Strategy, comfort, frankly.
Yeah. So, final part I wanted to touch on around kind of advice and forward thinking. We've spoken about your journey, and I'm lucky enough to know you personally, a leader in what you do. What advice would you give to other LGBTQ plus professionals who are like looking to step into this industry, navigate this industry in a traditionally conservative industry like law?
I guess key thing is network, right?
Okay.
I think don't never underestimate the power of the interactions that you have with other people.
Right.
Yeah. So make sure you're talking to as many people as possible. Make sure that you treat people as you like to be treated, because people really really remember how
How you made them feel.
how you made them feel.
Yeah, there's that famous saying, isn't it, about people won't remember what you said, how you said it, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. So I think that's important. Treat human beings like human beings. Specifically around navigating the legal industry, and if you're interested in kind of working within the pricing sector, it's just kind of just being authentic. I think that's kind of really helps me. Like I said, I don't subscribe to the masculinity of some sectors, and I think actually people quite like that. One of the comments that I get quite a lot from people is, Chris, we know you're an accountant, but you don't act like one. Is that a compliment? I don't know, but I'm taking it as one, and I think there's a subtext to that, right? There's a subtext to that, and I attribute that to me just being, I'm just going to be me. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you like it, good.
It's weird, isn't it? Well, not weird. It's interesting, actually. The underlying theme that's come out through this entire conversation is authenticity.
Yeah, I think so.
All the way through it.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, what excites you about the future of legal pricing? Where do you see it going?
What excites me about the future of legal pricing? I think that the legal sector generally needs to look at what other sectors are doing around pricing. And there should be at least steps to try and adopt some of the techniques that are out there. So what I see is increasingly with sophistication of technology, the increased use of AI, you're going to have to see quite a lot of fast-paced change that happens in how we deliver our services, and in turn how we go about pricing it as well. So I think, sometimes people talk in 5-year chunks. I'm generally talking about 3 years, and I'm being uber conservative when I say 3 years, where we're going to see quite a change in pace in how we deliver service and also how we price it.
And it disrupts law, going back to our selling time point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you referenced Gen AI, and it's like, well, how do you sell if you've got something you used to sell as 2 hours of human time that might be able to be done in 10 minutes through Gen AI? That changes the complete fundamental dynamic of legal pricing,
Completely.
doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. It changes the fundamental dynamic. I mean, I'm currently in the process of writing a paper that kind of looks at this, but there's nothing groundbreaking about the paper, because as an accountant, all accountants that they'll tell you, we already have the tools to kind of price this stuff up. It's just kind of just using those tools and putting it down on paper so that the legal industry that's always ever fought in hourly rates can see what us accountants have been doing for a long time. So yes, it does change the fabric, but we already have the tools to kind of manage it.
Fantastic. Final question. What does leading with pride mean to you?
Leading with pride. Being able to mince down that corridor and not give a care about anyone else thinks about you. That is my catwalk.
Life is one big catwalk.
It is one big catwalk, yes. I think, like RuPaul says, you're born naked and the rest is just drag. And it literally is. It literally is.
This has been amazing.
Yep.
Thanks for joining
me.
me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, I can't let you go just yet. There's one more part of the podcast that I always get the guests to do. Probably my favourite part, actually. So this part's called Mythbusters.
Yep.
So it's really based around the notion of, what's actually true and what's bullshit. And when I say that, I mean in respect of those things you hear in the corridors and at the conferences, and people say some of those kind of common might be misconceptions of pricing, what pricing is, what working in legal is, pretty much anything. So I'm going to throw a few statements your way, and I'm keen to hear your view on how you feel about them.
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, so the first one is shifting partner mindsets around how they price their matters is the biggest challenge in successfully implementing a firm's pricing strategy.
I think it's true. Do I press the bullshit button?
If it's true.
If it's true, right, got you.
It's true.
Yep. Can I just press it anyway?
Yeah, you can press it on the next one if it's this. I think you'll get a press out.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone's like, can I just press the bullshit? So shifting partner mindset around how they price their matters. So you see that as the biggest challenge in successfully implementing a pricing strategy?
Correct. The reason why is because change, whether you're a partner or anyone, I think it's difficult for people to kind of accept. If you are stuck on the treadmill of doing a very good job, to then have someone come along and say, well, do you know what, there's a different way of doing something, then that's going to cause a lot of disruption. So if you're looking at the very top echelons of a law firm, the partners, people who are just very successful at just doing what they've always done, and then suddenly you're asking them to kind of change their mindset, that will create a bit of friction, I think. Yeah.
Great answer. So number 2, the impact of a pricing function can only be measured by material financial changes to matters they have worked on.
Ooh, I'm going to bullshit it. That's a good button. I tell you why I'm going to bullshit that, because I think good pricing isn't always good commercials isn't always about getting top margins. It's about winning the right kind of work. It's about there's also a strategic spin to that as well, right? So if you're just looking at the financial metrics to see whether a price is good or not, you're kind of
on a particular matter.
You're also ignoring some of the other benefits of having that matter brings.
So you're kind of too deep in the tactical and not enough in the broader strategic piece.
You need to, completely, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, final question.
Go on.
So pricing can be a competitive differentiator for law firms in the same way innovation or DEI can.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree completely, and I tell you why. People, clients, human beings get excited about pricing, and probably in ways that you probably don't always recognise or realise. So a price can invoke an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can be, it doesn't need to be crazy, but if you can do something in price, keep in mind that it's a marketing tool that gets people excited, then that's innovation. That is, you're doing something that's very different.
And it gets into the psychology of pricing, which is, for people like us who have a keenness in this stuff.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to it, isn't there?
Yep, agreed.
I did a session at a conference a little while ago, and it was talking about litigation as a business risk. But into that, we got into pricing and asking questions around. It was more around kind of price anchoring and the notion in people's heads that the first price they see is the price that they then use as the anchor to whether something's cheap or expensive, and just asking the questions in the room. Hands up if you're if the first price you've got from a law firm for a piece of work, you've kind of gulped and thought, bloody hell, that's expensive. But then you get the next one, which is 10% more expensive, and then you kind of think, oh, maybe it wasn't that expensive, or are they both expensive? And it's just that psychology, right?
No, completely. Pricing psychology, and this is the innovation part of it, right?
Yeah.
I think what you articulated there was perfect. And I say this to everyone: if you want to make more money, right, you give your clients 2 or 3 options because of that pricing,
Choice, yeah.
because of that pricing anchoring psychology. You know, people might not necessarily want to go for the most premium price, but you don't know whether it's a premium price without having something to compare it to. It's sort of like being in a room and thinking, oh, it's really warm in here, until you go outside and realize actually it's really cold out here, so it's not that warm in there.
Yeah.
So you need to have a comparator, an anchor, to help you contextualize whether a price is good or not.
Yeah, and then I mean, and we could go down a rabbit hole this, right? But like, it's like when you're in a restaurant and you don't know the wine list, you look at the wines and you think, oh God, I mean, I could go for the cheap one. You know, is it going to be a rubbish wine? I can go for the expensive one. Do I want to spend that much? You know what? I'll go in the middle because it'd be more cost effective. It might not be the greatest wine, but it'll be a good wine.
Yep.
And that goes to your point on choice, and even the fashion one. I always think with fashion, right? So. And again, this is pure pricing psychology. I know you're walking down Bond Street, you walk past Gucci, you see a lovely jacket, and you're like, bloody hell, I bet that's expensive. And you're looking at, I don't know, £2,000 reduced to £1,000. You're like, I think I'm going to get that. But what's happening in your mind? Your mind's saying, I'm getting £2,000 worth of something for half of the price. If I don't get this now, it might then go back up to 2,000. And sliding doors moment, you go back to that same thing. You see the jacket, and you think, oh, that's a lovely jacket, £2,000. You're like, oh, that's a lot of money. I could probably get one cheaper here. I'll come back. I'll see how I go, and I'll come back and get that. And it just changes that whole dynamic, doesn't it?
No, completely. I like your sliding doors reference, by the way.
Nice.
Great.
So, look, Chris, thanks for sharing. It's been so good to have you on here, and I think it gets to the point that the pricing isn't just about numbers. It's about value, it's about representation, it's about strategy. And for our listeners, we encourage you to think about ways that you can build equity in your work and lead with pride wherever you are or whatever you're doing in your career. So thanks again, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the LOPSided Podcast with me, John O'Donoghue. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok, Instagram and LinkedIn at the LOPSided Podcast. Check out our website at www.thelopsidedpodcast.com, and most importantly, like us and subscribe to us here on YouTube.